So we're going to kind of be moving to step 5 of the instructional sequence in our unit planning. We have an essential question, we have a standards grouping, we have a culminating project, a performance task that we want kids to do. So what do we do in the middle? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we really advocate for an inquiry model. There are several different inquiry models, and these are kind of just four of the major ones. But we really advocate for Jeff Wilhelm's model, not just because he's the director of our writing project and a professor at Boise State, but because we think it's the best way to get at the Common Core. And there's several reasons for that. One of them is the 6 M's, which pretty much take the parts of some of the things we've already done and that we're going to talk about a little bit more today, and apprentices kids into the practice of the discipline that you're teaching. So I was talking to my daughter when she was deciding what to major in, and she said English. And I said, why? She said, because I know what they do, because I watch you, and I like my English classes because I understand what they do. And I said, well, what about a science career? She says, I don't know what those people do. I took tests, I read textbooks, I don't know what they do. So that's one thing about this model that I really appreciate, is that we're constantly, it changed the vocabulary in my classroom, because I'm always saying to them, this is what writers do. This is what people who study literature do. If you don't like this, don't major in English. And if we did that in all of those disciplines, kids might make better choices about what they do in their careers. So that's my favorite part, I think, of the model. So we spend a lot of time motivating. That essential question is a motivating thing. Those questions that you wrote yesterday, making sure those are engaging and that kids want to grapple with them. The front loading that we do, which we'll talk about a little bit in just a minute, and we've done it for you all through the workshop. Modeling, again, and Debbie talked about this exceptionally well yesterday. If you're not writing with your students, if you're not willing to do the process with your students, then you really shouldn't be asking your students to do what you ask them to do. I'll use this example of the poetry t-shirts at my school, and I think I brought this up yesterday. When I first came to Capital, they said, okay, you're teaching juniors, we do these poetry shirts. It's National Poetry Month in April, and everybody wears them to school on the same day. And I said, okay, well, why do we do that? And I got completely destroyed in this meeting, because we want kids to appreciate poetry. So then I had to ask the next question, well, how does writing poems on a t-shirt make them appreciate poetry? I don't see the connection. And so I thought, okay, I'm new, and this is a big thing here, and I'll just kind of go along with it. But it's 5 days, 5 class periods, and they just copy poems onto t-shirts. I'm not kidding. They drag the carded poetry books into the room, they give kids Sharpies, they write on the t-shirts. Have you ever tried to write on a t-shirt with a Sharpie marker? It is the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. And I'm like, well, we can't be working on motor skills. These are juniors in high school now, right? So I did it because I thought if I'm asking them to do it, I'm going to do it. I forgot my shirt. It looks really cool, and mine is completely covered in text. But it took me 5 periods of juniors, 5 days to make it look that good. And I was so frustrated by the end, and I already liked poetry and I already knew exactly which poems were going on my shirt. And here's kids pouring through books going, I don't know what I like, I don't know why I should like it, I don't even know what this means. It was the most frustrating thing ever. But at least I did what I asked my students to do. And I will tell you right now that there is not another junior teacher in that building that has done the shirt. And I swear, if they would just do it once, they'd never do it again. But so modeling's so important. And I learned this lesson in college. Candy Gillis, who was my professor at the University of Idaho, we were studying Macbeth, and we had been given parts, and I was Lady Macbeth, and I was all excited about it, and I start reading. She goes, just sing it like a cornball opera. And if there is anything that I will not do in public, singing is it. And I'm like, I can't. She's like, oh, come on. And she kind of just goaded me. Sandy, do you remember Candy? Did you have her? Oh, I was like,
she plays sport.
No, she's English education. Anyway, so I said, I can't do that. And I will tell you what, I've never asked my kids to just burst out into song in the middle of the classroom, because if you won't ask them if you won't do it yourself, you can't ask your kids to do it. So if you're telling them, "You just write it," then you have to engage in that process as well. And it helps kids so much, and it's so hard to bring in your own writing and say, "Okay, this is what I did last night. Let's see what we can do with it." And they are very willing to rip your stuff apart because they're so used to you doing the same thing. So while it's an intimidating thing and a kind of scary thing, and most of the kids that I teach are way better writers than I am, I still do it because I want them to see that I'm engaged in the same process. And this is what writers do.
Can I add just a point of balance in
Absolutely.
that? Just not to counterpoint at all, but there are sometimes things that kids are willing to do that I am way not willing to do, like bursting into song. And so if you have that set up where there's the opportunity and they get the choice and they're coming to you with it, I think that that's sort of important too. And I get what you're saying, but it just occurred to me that this year I had one of your students from last year that met Chris Crutcher because you taught them how to Skype and talk to Chris Crutcher. So in my class, he kind of kept saying, "I think I'm going to Skype with Chris Crutcher." And I was like, all right, I didn't really think too much about it, but I would never just, in the middle of, whatever, they're doing book talks and they're all in these little groups doing book talks, and this kid goes, "Hey, Chris Crutcher's on Skype over here. Do you want to talk to him?" And I was like, everyone stop for a second. Let's go talk to Chris. So it was really cool that he knew that and had that and could be that spontaneous, and that I wouldn't be able to just go with that. So just that little thought of sometimes other people are willing to step out in ways that I'm not comfortable doing, but I can see that it works in their personality. So just that little balance.
Yeah, I don't think you were disagreeing with me at all. But I
Okay.
think it's important to let kids
Yeah.
do their thing. But I don't think it's okay to ask a kid to do something you're not willing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So mentoring. So the I do, we do, you do. Very important. I'm going to model this for you. Then we're going to do a little bit together, and then you're going to do it on your own. And that part, the we do, gets skipped the most. And I am so guilty of that. The we do get skipped, and it probably is the most important step between the two. So, and I learned that from my husband. He gets on me all the time. Well, where's the we do part? Okay. He's really good at we do, though, isn't he, Jackie? Okay. Multiple modalities, differentiation. We've got to look at the different kinds of kids that we have in the classroom, and we have to make adjustments. And that's going back to the 4 TLC questions. What do we do with kids who don't get there? What do we do with the kids who exceed the mark early? Multiple measures of success, both formative and summative assessments. We've got to keep looking at what we're having kids do, see if they're getting there. And that can come in a variety of ways. You don't have to kill yourself with paper grading. It can come in many, many different ways. And again, I think Wilhelm's model, we like the intuitiveness of it, and that their personal experience is relevant to the things that we do in the classroom. That's why the creation of those essential questions is so important, because you want them to have something that they can connect with in some way.